Welcome to our webinar called Promoting Your Farm and Engaging with Customers at the Farmers Market. Our presenter today is April Jones from the Pinehurst Farmers Market in downtown Columbia, South Carolina. I am Larissa McKenna, FACTS Humane Farming Program Director, and I will be moderating this session. Thank you all for being here. Let me just take a minute to do just a few quick introductions before we dive right in. So, Food Animal Concerns Trust or FACTS, we are a national nonprofit organization that's headquartered in Illinois. We work to ensure that all food producing animals are raised in a healthy and humane manner. And we accomplish this by supporting humane farmers such as yourselves, promoting policies that make food from animals safe and healthy to eat, and also helping consumers make informed food choices. I get to direct FACTS Humane Farming Program, and that means I get to work with livestock and poultry farmers all across the country. FACT offers grants, scholarships, personalized materials, mentorship, and of course, webinars on a variety of fascinating topics. Also, I want to mention that we just launched a new financial training program for farmers, and we're accepting applications to participate through October 31st. So please visit our website to learn all about our farmer services. So at this time, I am delighted and honored to introduce our presenter, April Jones. April advocates for her sorry, let me just move this forward. A community is part of the food justice and food sovereignty movement. She's passionate about community, gardens, and farmers markets. She's a writer, photographer, blogger, YouTuber, recipe developer, book reviewer, and much more. She's also a past FACT scholarship recipient. So it's a really pleasure to have her with us again today to share her experience and her expertise and her perspective. So I think without further ado, April, I'm going to turn the floor over to you so that you may begin. I'll take myself off of webcam and mute.
Hi, everyone. So I'm April Jones, and I appreciate you guys so much for coming out today and listening to this talk. And I'm hopeful that I can really be helpful to you in your problems and offering some solutions and just to have a really awesome dialogue about farmers markets. So I'm located in sunny South Carolina in Columbia, which is the capital of South Carolina. And the Pinehurst Farmers Market is located right next to Benedict College Stadium. So Benedict College has an amazing band. And so now that it's fall, we're jamming out every week to the band as they practice and then, during the game time. So it's an exciting time in Pinehurst. So we're right next to Benedict College Stadium, right off the two-notch business corridor in downtown Columbia. And so we've had our farmers market for almost 3 years. And so we started the market because our community is in the food apartheid area, which means we don't have access to fresh fruits and vegetables at a grocery store because we don't have a grocery store in our community. And so we're in 29204, the zip code. And so in our area, in the exact next door to Pinehurst, we don't have grocery stores. We had two thriving grocery stores. They both closed, and that was the impetus to start the Pinehurst Farmers Market. So the Pinehurst Farmers Market has definitely been a really fun and amazing journey. We have now recently changed to a pop-up model, which means we pop up and it's a surprise, and we let you know via Facebook and Instagram and text messaging, newsletters to let you know that we have the market available. And so this is our new thing, and we're excited about it, and it's been going very well for us. So the first thing that you have to think about when you're doing a farmer's market is how much time you want to allocate to the market. And regarding that, what hours of availability do you want to have? Do you want to have it once a week? Do you want to have it on the weekend? Do you want to have it during the week? Or do you want to do a more bi-weekly or once a month? So you really have to kind of think about with your farmers, with your time, your community, what is really going to be the best option to get the most amount of customers. One piece of advice that I would say if you are just starting out at a market, I would keep the time short. Like my market is on normally Wednesdays, and it's from 1:30 until 3 o'clock. And so that's a short amount of time. It gives everybody a definite period of time that they need to get to the market if they want to come to the market. And then it also allows for the farmers to feel like they're respected and valued and that their time is valuable. And so it gives them a short window of time to allocate to the market. And so for my market at Pinehurst Farmers Market, it's been very successful having a short period of time because if they only have a few customers that day, they're still able to get a lot of money per hour. And if they have a lot, they make even more money per hour. And so it makes it a good feeling for all involved. But if you have a longer period of time, you really have to make sure that you have enough customers to get to a certain hourly rate for your farmers so they feel as if it's worth their time to invest um, all of that time. And the other thing is for your customers, I think is the psychological value of having a shorter time because it really gives them impetus to get to the market and to get their items. And if they have longer periods of time, they may, think about it at 3 and like, oh, I need to get to the market, but I have until 6. And then if 6 o'clock comes, by then they may be onto something else. Everybody's time is so valuable and there's so much going on in our everyday lives. It's important to get people to focus and to pay attention and to know that there's a limited amount of time to get something done. I found that to be very successful for the market. So, one of the first questions, I'm going to go through some of the questions that people have already sent in, and I'll be happy to answer questions people have now. Is what do you do when your market is closed from October to March? And so that's very common. A lot of markets are only open during the spring or the summer or summer and spring. So, what do you do in that time that is the downtime to keep interest for your market and to keep the ideas and the momentum moving forward? So, there's many options. You could blog or do a vlog or just do videos of what's going on with your farmers and what they're up to during this down season. You could share articles about sustainability and about farmers markets in other areas that are interesting and alluring. This could be in your newsletter, this could be in your social media, the ways that you reach out to your customers. So you can still take that time to educate and to engage. So you can educate about crops that are happening or recipes that they can use from fall and winter crops. So recipes for them to continue to use their vegetables wherever else they may be buying them. You can educate them about sustainability, things that other farmers markets are doing, or gardening or plants, things that align with the things that you are selling at the market. You could also talk about, holistic ways to improve your lifestyle and, talk about the vegetables and how they help you in your health and in your mental stability and things of that nature. So those are all kind of things that you have to think about. But the key is you want to engage and you want to educate your customers, even though they're not coming to the market. And so that there's still a relationship and a feeling of, warmth and happiness still connected to your farmers market. That's really important, something to think about. So another person said, how can you create partnerships for your farmers markets and what steps can you take? So that's an awesome question and it's so important. When we're in the sustainability space, it's really important to make sure you are reaching out to like minded individuals. And these organizations, like minded organizations, they have resources, they have people, and they have social capital that you can connect with and to elevate your own market. So, one thing is you can think of the intellectual kind of partnerships that you would make. So I would think of, first of all, like the library. See what kind of partnerships you can do with the library, whether it's hosting a class one time or doing a joint partnership marketing, vegetables or something in the sustainable space or gardening. So that's one partnership that you can relate because people who go to the library, they like gardening and they like vegetables, and the library likes vegetables and they like people who garden. And so it's a good partnership. You could also think about the art museum. And sometimes you don't think of art and vegetables and fruits, how they interact, but I think that vegetables can be a showcase of art, especially when you get to the heritage heirloom vegetables. And so they are vibrant and robust and they're beautiful and they're tasty. And so, if you can think of doing partnerships with the art museum, talking about the beauty of fruits and vegetables. And so, that would be a direct partnership that would work. And then that would also elevate and expand your reach of customers for your own farmers markets. So, you have to think about your own community and the values of your community, the values of the organizations that you may be interested in partnering with, and how those values align. And if there is an alignment, then I would reach out to them because the more people that you have involved in your farmers market and involved in the cause of sustainability and in the cause of growing things, the better your farmers market and your farm will be. So just think of sort of unique, interesting ways that you can partner. And there's so many in your city. And I also would say, I would invite your elected officials to your farm. Invite your elected officials to your farmers markets and start those conversations. Those are really important. I think sometimes in the sustainability movement, we shy away from politics because it can be very contentious and it can get really ferocious and ugly. But no matter where you are on your political spectrum, we all are in this together, and politics, it does matter. And even if you have, your Republican and your elected officials a Democrat, you still have some shared values and share a shared cause because you want your community to be good and amazing. And so you just have to overlook the politics and just talk about the vegetables and the fruits because everyone is eating and get them aligned with you. And farms and farmers markets are not political spaces unless that's part of your mission, and that's respectable as well. But they can be non political spaces where we're all coming together and gathering around a plate of food and gathering for the good of our community. So the people in politics and the political infrastructure, they have resources and they have expertise that can be very good for you and your farmers markets, whether it's changing laws to make your farmers market easier for you to maintain and to grow, or whether it's talking about food access and programs and resources that you can give to the city or your municipality or your county or state to help with that food access issue. Those are all important things, and it's good not to overlook those kind of partnerships as well. So, on to pricing strategies. So, with pricing strategies, I think it's important to think about your customer and think about your demographics and think about, income levels and then tier things out for people. So, at the Pinehurst Farmers Market, we have amazing farmers and they really have a price point for everyone. So if you wanted to get turnips, they are less expensive than, say, a kale. And so just kind of thinking that you want everyone to be able to have a great experience, but you also want to make sure that you are pricing fairly and pricing enough that you are making a profit. And I think as farmers and farmer market managers, sometimes it's hard for us because we have sweet little hearts and we really want the best for our community and our society. But we also have to think about the effort and the energy and the labor that we've put into our product and to make sure that we are pricing accordingly. So, one thing that I like to say is everybody likes, not everyone, but most people like soft drinks, and they are tasty, but they are very expensive. And so, Coke, I'll just give that as an example. It could be any soft drink. They only have corn syrup, some dye, little flavorings, and some water. But they charge a lot of money for that product. And no one ever says, like, oh, that Coke is too expensive. They say, oh, no, the Coke is delicious. It's wonderful. And so we have to think of ourselves like a Coke, but you're better than Coke because you're making something really delicious and amazing, and it's good for you. So you have to think, if Coke is charging a high price for their not so high quality ingredients, I need to make sure I'm charging a fair price. So that's something to think about. And then also have it tiered. So people who only have a little bit of money can buy certain items. And then people who have a lot of money, they can, upgrade. Whether that is upselling or having products that you have made and charging more for that. So that could be like a jam, a jelly, a scone, a cake. Those prices can be higher because you are upselling those products and you're also maybe using things from your farmer's market. Then you may have raw ingredients like onions and turnips and rutabagas, and you may have a lower price for that. So you just want to tier things so that everyone is getting their value, but you are getting your resources that you desperately need. So thinking about your food, keeping meat cold is another issue at the farmers markets. And so you really want to make sure that you are using like a dry ice and making sure that the meat is already frozen beforehand. And when you're thinking about signage for your farmers market, my biggest tip for signage is just making sure that you have a big letters and an easy font like Arial or Times New Roman. That's really important. And when you're thinking about setting up your booth for attraction, um, flowers are really important. And thinking about your color scheme is also very important. So if you think about your color scheme, how it's going to draw attention. The great way that I think about setting up your booth is to make sure that you are looking at magazines and food magazines and seeing how they are structuring things and the colors that they use. That's always important. Making sure you have a cloth over your table, really good signage for what your farm, and then also pricing, making sure that you have the correct pricing information so people don't have to necessarily ask you how much is da 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 da. They can just look, see, pick up, and buy, which is really, really important. And if you're thinking about selling at a farmer's market, one of the best ways is to think about your community and the environment around you, and then also the other sellers. If you're thinking, is a farmer's market the best way to move my products? If you wanted to get into new spaces with new customers, it's a good idea to do a farmer's market because you come across more people. But you can also just build your brand and your, farm on your own as well. And so you really have to sometimes try out a couple farmers markets, see how much money you make, and if it was a good investment of your time and resources. And if it's not, then you can focus on building your own brand and selling at your own farm and see which is more beneficial with your time and the resources that you have. So, when you are thinking about getting people to try uncommon proteins such as, goat, maybe goose, sometimes a duck, I think that you can always go to what has already been done. So, if you think about pork, they said it was the other white meat, and all the different promotion that they've done for pork, you can kind of take that history of pork and increasing our pork rates of eating and introduce it with your goat. So goat is not something that we necessarily eat a lot, here in the States, but it's very delicious, and I'm a big proponent of goat. But you have to just slowly introduce people to goat. You can show different um, traditional uses of goat. You can share interesting recipes. You could also look on the internet and see what recipes are trending, what's in like the New York Times that they're really big for food, and just kind of elevate that. So once people see that other people have eaten goat somewhere else in the country or in their neighborhood, or some, blogger, you could share what bloggers are saying about goat. Once people see that other people are trying it and it's interesting and delicious, then they are open to trying it as well. But you just have to be creative and give it time, because people slowly will be introduced to new meats. People are sometimes very hesitant. So that's something to think about. Back to thinking about our politicians, a lot of farmers markets, they have different laws based on your state. So it's important to talk to your legislative branch of government to see what laws are on the books. You can research it yourself through the internet, but it's important to inform yourself about the laws in your state and in your county, and how that relates to you and being able to run a farmer's market, sell your produce, sell your meat, process your meat. Those are all important things to think about, and you do need to research. A lot of states have cottage laws, which means that you can sell a certain amount of food that you make in your home. Normally, those are like jams, jellies, cakes, things of that nature, but it's always expanding. A lot of states are expanding the amount that you can sell from your house without having like a license, due to the pandemic, because they see that people need to make money, but also people need access to food. So research your cottage laws in your state. Talk to your legislators about how you may want to change some of those laws, or maybe expand the cottage laws that are on the books, and then just look at your county and city laws regarding your farmers markets. And really, you will be surprised based on your state, how different it can be. For example, in South Carolina, which is where I am, we have raw milk, and you can drink raw milk, you can buy raw milk. But I'm originally from Akron, Ohio. And so in Akron, raw milk is illegal. So, in order to be able to get raw milk, people are purchasing shares in a cow. So basically, your friend has a cow, you pay them saying, I want a share of that cow. And then you, the person buying the shares, can now have raw milk because you actually partially own a cow. So those are kind of things that you have to kind of research and look and see how your state is structuring their laws, and then the legal ways that you can take to make sure that you still get the item or the product that you want. But it's important to make sure you're legal. And you can also talk to fact. You can also talk to the Farmers Market Coalition. These are other nonprofits that have resources and would have more information for you. And you can also talk to Farm Commons, which is another nonprofit, and they can let you know the laws in your state and how to make sure that you're abiding by them. So, those are all very, very important thoughts and things to think about when you are doing a farmer's market. So, we're going to talk about grants. So, there are so many grants out there, and you can use grants for your farm. You can also use grants for your farmers markets. And they're an amazing way to raise funds for your objectives. And they're also a fabulous way to create partnerships. And so, how I like to think about grants is they are new relationships that you are beginning with a new organization, and they really can be lifelong relationships where even after they've given you the money for the grant, you can always still reach out to them for additional resources or additional strategies or volunteers, or you can do co marketing together for events. And they're really just relationships that you are building and growing to improve your community and to improve sustainability in your area. So I think it's always important to start local when you're thinking about grants and to start small. And this is just my personal experience and opinion, but if you want to go big, I totally support you going big. But what I have found is that when you start small, you're able to really craft your story and build a relationship with the organization. And sometimes relationships start out small and maybe a $5,000 grant, and then you can build the relationship, and then next time you can apply for 20 or 50,000. But you feel more comfortable because you've dealt with the organization, you know how they have things structured, you know what they're looking for, and their accountability factor. And then when you go for the $50,000 grant, you feel comfortable and they feel comfortable. So you can always start with grants in your community. It could be from local nonprofits, it could be from your church, your religious organization, civic groups. It could be also from other big entities like the art museum, the library. Your local university may have grantor money that they can give out to you. So you can just start with your relationships. And then if you're not finding that you are getting necessarily the support that you need in your community, I say go outside of your community and talk to other organizations, national organizations, maybe the next state over. So I'm in South Carolina, and I have so many good, fabulous relationships and partners in North Carolina. And that was because I was getting some support in my community, but I felt like I needed more support. So I just went to the next state over, and so many beautiful relationships and so much support. So don't be limited by your geographical region. Always think outside if you cannot get the support that you need. And the USDA also has a senior voucher program, which is really excellent. And so for South Carolina, you would apply to the state. I think DSS um, covers it. And so you apply to them and then fill out the application, they approve you, and then people will get the senior vouchers and then they give them to you, and then you give them back to DSS, and then they pay you. And so anytime you're doing that sort of payment system, it's important to think about the time that you are allocating to apply for the program, any accountability factors that may come into this program, and then the return on payment. So, how long? So, how long is the payment process? If someone gives this to me tomorrow, how long do I have to wait for payment? And so, for me, as a farmer market manager, I think it's important to think about those factors. You do want to help people and you do want to have goodwill and benefit your community. But if the payment return is too long, then it may not be worth your time and effort. It may be better for you to see if you can get a donation from a local business of $500 and then promote to your community of farmer market people, your customers, that you have your own little senior program where they get $5 complimentary, and then just whittle away the $500. That may be more beneficial for your time, effort, and energy than doing the USDA voucher. And so you just have to think about those things. And every state is different. Some states, they pay you up front. And so you already have the working capital. But it's always good to think about, especially as a farmer and a farmer market manager, your time and your resources, and how quickly you're able to get money back for all your time and effort and energy. So it's always good to think creatively and to think outside of the box, and to focus on your values and ways that you can promote those values to your community and to others. It's very, very important. So, someone else was asking me about lead in questions for the farmers markets. Like, what kind of things would help people to be interested and want to buy, but also sounds professional? So, what I always like to do is go to your magazines. I know I've said this before, but the magazines, they have the most wonderful words that are just alluring and they captivate you and they stick with you. And so I would really just look at what is going on in the magazines, or if you're see a lot of billboards, think about the kind of words they're using to sell their product on the billboards. Or if you're watching TV, the ads, what kind of words are they using to say, this burger is amazing? They may say juicy, delicious, life changing. And you're like, I'm not sure if a burger can be life changing. But those are the words that they're using that will evoke emotions and feeling and will compel you to buy. And so sometimes when we are selling as sustainable people, we once again have sweet little hearts and we're nice people and we don't want to feel like we're manipulating or leading people astray, and we just want people to use their own free will, which is very important. But I do think we have to sometimes look at what's going on in our society and what the corporations are doing to promote and to sell their products, and they're doing a lot of different things, and we don't have to copy all of it, but the marketing definitely is something that you can replicate because you have an amazing product. And whenever you feel guilty or you feel like maybe you're being manipulative about selling your vegetables or your product that's sustainable and delicious and amazing, you have to just think about your product. You have an amazing product. You've put time and effort and energy and integrity into your product, and you are giving the best to your customers. And you have to really just rely on that and just sink into it and believe it. And then you have to give it out to your customers and your community and just really have commitment in your amazing product. And so those are some of the things that I would do. I would look at magazines, I would look at the marketing of other corporations and just replicate that and craft it to meet your needs of the things that you are selling. So the tips I would have for perishable items is to make sure that you are, using the correct refrigeration and strategies to keep it, out of the heat. So some strategies that I've seen at my farmers markets is a cooler with a little bit of ice, and then they have the berries already in there, so they're cool. And that kind of keeps them, when you have berries, they just love the heat, and then they start to wilt. They smell really delicious, but then they start to wilt. So anything that you have that's going to wilt, make sure you have it in a cool environment. And then also make sure that you don't have all of it out at one time. That's very important. When you're harvesting, make sure that you are harvesting just the amount that you think people will need. And if you run out, that's okay because people are going to want to come back next week and they're going to want to come back early to make sure that they can get that item. And also, if you have something that's very perishable, you know that beforehand. And when you are going to the market beforehand, you can heavily promote that item. So if you have kale, which maybe not that perishable because it's a fall crop and it's not that hot in the South anymore, but we'll just say kale. Or we can go back to blackberries. Blackberries would probably be better. You can promote blackberry smoothies, blackberry cobbler, blackberry cookies, blackberry ice cream, all the different ways that you can use those blackberries and heavily promote them. And then that will give people a cue before they come out to the market to think about blackberries and to purchase those blackberries. And then that will help you not have those blackberries perishing in the heat and the humidity, and you will sell through all of those items. So those are some sort of things to think about beforehand. A lot of things with farmers markets and with the farm, you have to kind of problem solve beforehand, and then you definitely avoid a lot of issues. So social media is also something that's very important. And so there's lots of different things you can use. You can use Instagram, you can use Facebook. So I like to create my own little ads, and you can do that on Canva, which is an app, and you create your ad on the app, and they have it where you can actually upload it to Instagram. You can upload it to Facebook. You can also use like a Facebook media, a social media scheduler. I don't know if there's one free anymore. They used to have free ones, but I think the fee isn't that high. But you can schedule your social media posts, so that definitely gives you more time. But you can also do that on Facebook. You can schedule your social media uploads that you want to do. So, those are all some things to think about. I like Instagram a lot because people are very visual and you can do videos. And so you get that demographic, a younger demographic on Instagram. I find Facebook is an older demographic, which is still amazing and fabulous. But you just have to use different strategies. So on Facebook, I post more recipes, I post more writing, I post pictures as well, but it's more written on Facebook. Instagram, it's mostly pictures, videos, that kind of thing. And you can do Facebook Lives when you're at your market while it's going on, Instagram Lives. So there's just a lot of options for you, but you have to just focus on who you are, your content, and what message you want to get out to your customers. And you have to kind of play and see which one is going to be the most effective for you and your market and your demographics. But with social media, it's also important to really have strong messaging, and really have a commitment to your content and know that you are really helping your customers, you are benefiting them, and be committed to that. So, those are very important things to think about and tips for finding new customers. So, I think that a great way to think about finding new customers is doing partnerships, like we talked about. So, there'll be partnerships with local nonprofits, partnerships with your religious organizations, partners with all sorts of different groups. And you have to think about your customers and where are your customers? Are they more religious people? So if they're a very religious group, you could partner with churches and send your newsletter out to them and think of ways that you can partner with those organizations. So you have to just think about your customer base and their lifestyles and where they go besides your farmer's market or visiting your farm stand. Where do they go in their everyday life? And then target those organizations and those groups. And that's a great way to find new customers. And then also telling your customers to tell a friend or to bring a friend, and you can put that in your newsletter, you can put that in your social media posts, of just reminding people to tell a friend, tell a family member, tell your neighbor, and just kind of repeat that messaging to make sure people know to share the good word and share with the neighbor about the goodness of your farmer's market, your farm stand, and the work that you're doing. Another thing is you can work with your media and reach out to your local news reporter and let them know about the work that you're doing or the new product that you have or the new crop you're going to harvest. And maybe they'll feature a story about you in the local paper or a local news organization. And that's another way of finding new customers. So, tips on how to create repeat customers. I would say that it's very important to keep your relationships with your customers. And so, to reach out to them and to keep track of them and to see how their family is doing, and really think about each customer as a relationship. And just do the things that you would normally do in everyday life to keep a relationship going, whether it's reaching out to them via social media and just saying, I'm thinking about you, whether it's asking about, their loved one or their grandchild or their child. And think about ways that you can draw people together. So for the Pinehurst Farmers Market, we had Joe Cunningham, who's running for governor of the state of South Carolina. And he actually came to the last Pinehurst Farmers Market. And so that was an awesome opportunity for my repeat customers to come out and to talk to Joe about their concerns, about things that they love about South Carolina, ideas that they have to make South Carolina even more amazing and better. And it was a great opportunity for Joe because he got a chance to meet farmers. He got a chance to meet maybe future constituents and to really hear about their concerns and talk about the values of South Carolina and how we can move forward as a state. And so that was a really fun, interesting opportunity that the repeat customers had a chance to participate in. So if you can think about ways that you can bring your repeat customers back, it could be meeting a local political figure. I mean, there's all sorts of options and opportunities to kind of create a buzz and an opportunity for people to connect and to come together, whether it's having, live music or an art demonstration at the market, but just kind of occasionally switching it up and adding in a little more joie de vivre into life, into your market, into your farm is important to think about. And that's a great way to build solidarity and to build relationships and to build your repeat customers. So I think those are the key things that people have asked about. And I wanted to see if there's any other questions that people may have in our last 10 minutes.
Thank you, April. I'm just looking through our list of questions that came in. It looks like there were a few earlier. Folks are wondering um, more about your pop up model.
Mhm.
If you're doing it the same time and location and place every time, and possibly a little bit more about why you chose to transition to a pop up model.
Yeah, so the pop up model has been something that has been in my mind for a very long time. And it was really hard for me to commit to because I just love having a market every week. But now that we're going into the fall season, there's less vegetables that are available than in the summer and the spring. And so I thought a pop up model would be really great because it allows the farmers to come when they have fabulous produce and it's available. And then it also kind of creates a buzz and an excitement and makes it kind of interesting. And those are the reasons that I decided to do a pop up model. And so it's always every Wednesday when we do the pop up from 1:30 until 3 o'clock. And so I really have had success with the pop up model. I enjoy it because it gives me more freedom to, talk to other people, do a talk like this, and things that I'm still really passionate about in the sustainable movement. And then it also allows my farmers to have more freedom. They don't feel like they have to be tied down to like every Wednesday at that time. And it just kind of makes it more exciting and interesting. And then also, when we have special events like Joe Cunningham, it makes it even more special to do a pop up. And so I found it to be successful. You have to, when you're doing a pop up, think about the timing of it. Are you going to have a consistent time, consistent day, and then coordinating it with your farmers? And if that's something that you can work through, I definitely would recommend it.
And you do hold it at the same location?
Yeah, it's at my house. So yes,
Nice and
yes,
convenient.
yes, it's very nice.
Awesome. There were a couple well, there's a bunch of chat going on that, in the chat bar about SNAP benefits and if your market accepts them, and then, one of my colleagues, Samantha, was also sharing more information about how if markets are interested in starting that, how you might look into doing that, but I don't know if you've had any experience with that, April?
So I love SNAP. I think it's a fabulous program. Unfortunately, here in South Carolina, it's not structured as it could be to be beneficial for the farmers here. And so it's a long turnaround time for payment, which makes it very difficult for me as a farmer market manager to promote and to encourage my farmers to be a participant in. And then there's also the card reader is really expensive, and so you have to get a grant to override that cost. And so I've had some really great robust conversations with the USDA and stakeholders in South Carolina about my concerns and other farmers concerns regarding SNAP. So I'm hopeful that we can make some modifications. But every state is so different. Some states, they give money up front, so you don't have that lag time for payment. So there's so many different options. I know the Black Farmers Market, which is in Durham, North Carolina, and Raleigh, North Carolina. They just got SNAP and they're super excited about it. But they have it structured differently because they're in North Carolina. So every state is different. If you feel like the payment turnaround times are great for you, or you feel like you can, delay payment in order to be a part of SNAP, I'm a big proponent of being involved with SNAP if you can. But I do think we have to have honest, forthright conversations about payment and turnaround times. And I think a lot of times in the sustainability movement, um, there's a lot of pressure put on us for the community good. And with that pressure, sometimes the payment isn't right there for the farmers, and they definitely need it. They need the payment for sure. It's important.
Another question came in the Q&A section. It says, you said you work with others. I'm thinking of forming a group of local farm related people. Any hints on organizing that?
I think it's an awesome idea. I Since we're just like hanging out with company and we're all part of the movement, I'll just be honest. I think farmers are like artists, and that's how I think of them. So if you have farmer people, people in the sustainable movement, I think you have to think of them as if they're a Picasso, and they have strong views, and they normally see things really clearly. And you have to make sure you treat them and have the sensitivity like you would treat a Picasso, and the reverence like you would treat a Picasso. Sometimes I think we think of farmers and we don't always have the correct perspective in my mind. And we need to really elevate and reverence them, and know that they have a huge importance in our society, and to just start out with that kind of thinking of high reverence, and that they may be quirky and interesting, and that's okay, and you just have to work with that. But that's what I found that's been really successful for working with farmers. But I'm probably like that myself, so it could be a little bit introspective as well.
That's very sweet. Um, oh, someone is asking about your YouTube channel. Maybe you could let
Mhm.
me know if you have
Yeah,
a.
I do have a YouTube. It's Pinehurst Farmers Market, but I have not honestly uploaded anything lately. So the best I think would be to look at the Pinehurst. I have Pinehurst Farmers Market Instagram, and we're also on Facebook. And then Pinehurst Community Action, which is our nonprofit, we're on Instagram and Facebook. And then Frolicking Americana is on Facebook and Instagram. And so that's what I use. And I also have a blog, Frolicking Americana.
Awesome. Yeah, I'll provide some links in the follow up email if you want to get in touch with April or Pinehurst to kind of connect and learn more. Um, whatever floats your boat. Well, let me just move on here. I wanted to just kind of take a little time to debrief here and tell you a little bit more of what's coming up this fall. We do have a bunch more webinars. A lot of them actually are going to take on some of these topics that that April started with, and kind of go a little bit deeper dive. We have some about cultivating customers. We have some about social media, some about creating really great emails and newsletters for your customers, along with a bunch of other webinars about farm finances and some management issues. So definitely take a look through those. A reminder that immediately after this webinar ends, there will be a quick survey that will pop up on your screen. If you could take a minute or two to fill that out for us, we'd greatly appreciate it. I'll be sending out a follow-up email with links later on today, so that you can watch the recording or share it with others. Um, a reminder that we do have a new financial training program. Like I mentioned earlier, applications are available, and they are due October 31st. We also offer scholarships to conferences, trainings, educational events, in person or virtual. So that's something to keep in mind for folks that are looking to um, get some learning in this fall and winter. So I'll be sure to send links to all of these opportunities in my follow-up email. So I think that's about all the time we have for today. April, do you have any final thoughts before we wrap up?
Thank you guys so much for having me on today. It was a really fun conversation and so many really good questions. I'm hopeful that you guys got some answers that you needed, and always reach out to me. I'm happy to always have more conversations. And thank you guys so much for having me. It's been fun, so much fun.
Yeah, these
Yeah.
are wonderful conversations. It is always tricky when people are all over the place in terms of local laws and state regulations and how that all affects. But I think there's some real good takeaway messages that you people can use and kind of adapt for their own purposes, whether that's at the farmers market or just in everyday life with friends and customers.
Mhm.
So I really want to thank you, April, for taking the time out from your busy day to be with us. It's been a pleasure. Lovely conversation. And thank you to everyone out there in the audience for your questions in advance and then for your engagement throughout the session today. I hope that you'll join us for another webinar again soon, maybe even next week. We have another one coming up next Tuesday. Um, but in the meantime, please stay in touch and enjoy the rest of your day and your week. Goodbye for now.
Bye.